Lois Lane is in for the ride of her life when she gets a first-hand look at the extent of Kal-El's powers, turning his arrest into an explosive chase and opening her eyes to what a real hero looks like. Is the new Superman more machine than man? And why does he smell like an oak barrel full of burgundy? I don't know, but let's find out in Absolute Superman number 2 from DC Comics. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Absolute Superman number 2. Given DC's emphasis on making the Absolute titles as big a hit as possible, writer Jason Aaron isn't making it easy to like Absolute Superman number 2. In general, the issue is a more engaging read than issue number 1, so that's a positive, because you spend, first of all, much less time on Krypton, and second, you get more time to see what this version of Kal-El and his supersuit can do. However, the wonky messaging against the use of generative AI for writing and weirdly worded narration from Lois Lane throws the issue off balance in big chunks. C'est la vie. But before we dig in, how about a recap? When last we left the last son of Krypton in Absolute Superman number 1, we witnessed the last days of Krypton when a brilliant scientist named Jor-El was banished to the working class after railing against the elite scientist class for ignoring the ecological dangers to their home planet. In the present, Kal-El secretly travels from one location to the next, protecting labor workers from exploitation by the Lazarus Corporation. The issue ended with a Lazarus strike team surrounding Kal-El, led by Officer Lois Lane. Alrighty, so that brings us to the current issue. In Absolute Superman number 2, we begin with a brief prologue on Krypton. A teacher makes the rounds with students during a virtual classroom session, giving praise to each student for their reports. The teacher, however, is shocked to find that Kal-El wrote his own report instead of using the approved generative AI linked to the Science League's storehouse of knowledge. In the present, we pick up with Lois Lane still handcuffed to Kal-El. She orders Kal to get on his knees for detainment as peacemakers and Lazarus Corp soldiers surround them at gunpoint. Saul, Kal's suit, emits a fiery plasma tentacle to undo the cuffs, but the undoing will take some time. The surrounding soldiers are authorized to open fire, sacrificing Lois Lane as collateral damage. In response, Saul emits a cape-like structure made out of Kryptonian dust to shield them from the gunfire assault. Sensing he needs to buy Saul some time to undo those cuffs, Kal super jumps into the air, pulling Lois behind him from the attached cuffs and buoyed by his cape, I guess is what you would call it. A few miles later, they're shot down by a pursuing helitank, which looks like a tank with a helicopter blade on top. Okay, sure. It sends them crashing into a small village's church down below. Saul wraps the dust cape around nearby villagers and applies dust to their wounds for healing. So this cape can do it all, man. As the rescue effort continues, Lois begins to narrate her after-action report in the future as she gives the information to the Brainiac AI that works for the Lazarus Corporation. She describes everything about Kal, including his demeanor, his appearance, and the way he smells, hence the oak barrel comment earlier, using the most unexpectedly flowery language you've ever heard from any version of Lois Lane on any planet in any dimension anywhere in the universe. The issue concludes with Kal leaping away as soon as Saul unlocks the specialized handcuffs, Lois becoming frustrated with the Brainiac AI's interpretation of her report, igniting a passion in her to become a writer for some unknown reason. We get a peek at Kal's parents inventing the suit he now wears before the destruction of Krypton, and we see the peacemakers taking out their frustration on the local villagers. And that's the issue. So let's talk about some of the positives and negatives, starting with what's great about Absolute Superman number 2. Some of the aspects we expected to see in issue number 1, but didn't get at all, show themselves in issue number 2, which is a big positive. For example, we get to see this dust cape in action. The extended first interaction between Kal and Lois has some charming moments to it. You definitely can see some chemistry there. And the rescue scene in the Brazilian village is the kind of Superman-esque action you'd expect to see from a Man of Steel, regardless of which universe he hails from. As a plus, the elements of the story that take place on Krypton are much less prominent compared to issue number 1, because, let's be frank, nobody cares about Krypton. Alright, so let's switch over to what's not great about Absolute Superman number 2. First, Jason Aaron's thorough world building in issue number 1 was greatly overshadowed by the heavy-handed messaging about classism and worker exploitation, taking time away from Kal-El's introduction. He got the short end of the stick. In issue number 2, you get heavy-handed messaging about the reliance on generative AI for the simple act of writing. How about this as a suggestion? Why don't we just stop with the heavy-handed messaging on any topic and focus on telling an exciting adventure story? Second, and this is a weird one, Lois Lane's flowery, almost Shakespearean after-action report doesn't sound like anything that would come from Lois Lane or a Lazarus Corporation field agent who explicitly states in this issue she hates writing. Is Jason Aaron trying to say Kal-El got her to swoon so hard that she turned into an English lit major? The narration just comes off as silly and it feels woefully out of place. Last but possibly least, because it is a smaller point but it does kind of stick out a little bit, it seems odd to have a story about an alternate version of Superman where the suit does most of the work, which is what happens in this issue. Yes, Kal has his powers, he's got freeze breath, and he's got the ability to do super jumps and invulnerability and what have you, but the super versatile dust cape, plasma tentacles, and tactical information are all coming from Sol, which is the AI in his suit. You almost get the impression Kal is somewhat of a sidekick for his own suit, which is really weird. Let's switch gears and talk about the art for a second. There's no need to mince words. The art looks great. Rafa Sandoval has the unenviable task of envisioning things like dust capes and plasma tentacles and all kinds of action to give readers as much bang for the buck as possible. Plus, Ulysses Areola's coloring makes great use of lighting, shine, reflection, glare, and glow to give this issue an extra bit of vibrancy and pop. It looks great. Final thoughts, what do we think about Absolute Superman number 2? It's definitely an improvement over the first issue, not by huge leaps and bounds, but enough. Jason Aaron's script spends much less time on Krypton and more time showing what this alternate version of the Man of Steel can do. Plus, the art team creatively brings Kal-El's range of unique gadgets to life. That said, the script suffers from odd narration, particularly from Lois Lane, heavy-handed messaging about the use of AI, which is unnecessary in this issue, and weird action where the suit does most of the work, which seems odd for a Superman comic. Therefore, Absolute Superman number 2 earns an 8 out of 10. It's a qualified improvement, but still an improvement. But what do you think? Are you sold on this tonally unique version of Superman? Leave a thumbs up if you found this review helpful and drop a comment below with which Absolute title is your favorite so far. Also, remember to click on the link in the description to read the written review, check out the variant covers and preview pages, and buy this comic to help support the channel. Your support, of course, is greatly appreciated. So, thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.